colocar perguntas e respostas. Observe a figura e a atividade que ela representa. Nesse caso, cook lunch or cook dinner. Use a frequência entre parênteses para formar uma frase. Siga o exemplo. Depois, pratique perguntar e responder as perguntas. Vamos fazer o primeiro como exemplo. Veja a pergunta. What do you do on Sundays? Entre parênteses, você tem a frequência usually. Agora monte uma frase usando a atividade cook lunch or cook dinner e a frequência usually. I usually cook dinner. A próxima pergunta é How often do you cook lunch? E entre parênteses, a frequência always. Monte uma frase usando a atividade cook lunch e a frequência always. A frase seria I always cook lunch. When do you cook lunch? Frequência every day. Monte uma frase usando a frequência every day e a atividade cook lunch. I cook lunch every day. Agora vamos praticar as perguntas e as respostas. Eu serei o A e você será o B. What do you do on Sundays? How often do you cook lunch? When do you cook lunch? Agora que você já sabe como fazer o exercício, vamos fazer o mesmo com as outras atividades. Do homework. What do you do in the evenings? Usually. Se você preferir, você pode pausar o seu vídeo agora, depois de cada pergunta, formular a sua frase e depois retomar o vídeo para ver a resposta. I usually do homework. How often do you do homework? I sometimes do homework. When do you do homework? I do homework every day. Agora vamos praticar as perguntas e as respostas. Eu serei o B e você será o A. Então você começa fazendo a pergunta. I usually do homework. I sometimes do homework. I do homework every day. Do housework. What do you do on Saturday mornings? I often do housework. How often do you do housework? I hardly ever do housework. When do you do housework? I do housework once a month. Let's practice. I am A and you are B. What do you do on Saturday mornings? How often do you do housework? When do you do housework? Go to the park. What do you do on Sunday afternoons? I usually go to the park. How often do you go to the park? I hardly ever go to the park. When do you go to the park? I go to the park on weekends. Now, you are A and I am B. You start. I usually go to the park. I hardly ever go to the park. I go to the park on weekends. Go to restaurants. What do you do on Wednesday evenings? I sometimes go to restaurants. How often do you go to restaurants? I go to restaurants every weekend. When do you go to restaurants? I go to restaurants on Sundays. Now I am A. What do you do on Wednesday evenings? How often do you go to restaurants? When do you go to restaurants? Go to the beach. What do you do on weekends? I often go to the beach. How often do you go to the beach? I go to the beach every other weekend. When do you go to the beach? I go to the beach on my vacation. Now you are A, you start. I often go to the beach. I go to the beach every other weekend. I go to the beach on my vacation. Go to concerts. What do you do on Sunday afternoons? I sometimes go to concerts. How often do you go to concerts? I hardly ever go to concerts. When do you go to concerts? I never go to concerts. Now I am A and you are B. What do you do on Sunday afternoons? How often do you go to concerts? When do you go to concerts? Go to the theater. What do you do on Saturday nights? I occasionally go to the theater. How often do you go to the theater? I go to the theater on Fridays. When do you go to the theater? I hardly ever go to the theater. Now you start. You are A. I occasionally go to the theater. I go to the theater on Fridays. I hardly ever go to the theater. Go to nightclubs. What do you do on Thursday nights? I always go to nightclubs. How often do you go to nightclubs? I sometimes go to nightclubs. When do you go to nightclubs? I never go to nightclubs. Now I am A and you are B. What do you do on Thursday nights? How often do you go to nightclubs? When do you go to nightclubs? Go to a museum. What do you do on weekends? I occasionally go to a museum. How often do you go to a museum? I go to a museum on my vacation. When do you go to a museum? I sometimes go to a museum. Now you start. You are A. I occasionally go to a museum. I go to a museum on my vacation. I sometimes go to a museum. Go to the mall. What do you do on Wednesdays? I usually go to the mall. How often do you go to the mall? I go to the mall twice a week. When do you go to the mall? I go to the mall on Saturday afternoons. Now I start. What do you do on Wednesdays? How often do you go to the mall? When do you go to the mall? Go to the gym. What do you do on Monday evenings? I always go to the gym. How often do you go to the gym? I go to the gym every day. When do you go to the gym? I go to the gym on Mondays and Wednesdays. Now you are A. You start. I always go to the gym. I go to the gym every day. I go to the gym on Mondays and Wednesdays. Go to a bar, go to a pub. What do you do on Saturday evenings? I often go to a bar. How often do you go to a bar? I go to a bar every weekend. When do you go to a bar? I go to a bar on weekends. Now I start. What do you do on Saturday evenings? How often do you go to a bar? When do you go to a bar? Hang out with friends. What do you do on Sunday afternoons? I always hang out with my friends. How often do you hang out with your friends? I sometimes hang out with my friends. When do you hang out with your friends? I hang out with my friends on Friday nights. Now let's practice. You start. I always hang out with my friends. I sometimes hang out with my friends. I hang out with my friends on Friday nights. Have a barbecue. What do you do on Saturday afternoons? I usually have a barbecue. How often do you have a barbecue? I hardly ever have a barbecue. When do you have a barbecue? I have a barbecue on Sunday nights. Let's practice. Now I start. What do you do on Saturday afternoons? How often do you have a barbecue? When do you have a barbecue? Listen to music. What do you do in the mornings? I always listen to music. How often do you listen to music? I listen to music every day. When do you listen to music? I listen to music in the afternoons. Now let's practice. You start. I always listen to music. I listen to music every day. I listen to music in the afternoons. Read the newspaper. What do you do on Sunday mornings? I usually read the newspaper. How often do you read the newspaper? I read the newspaper every day. When do you read the newspaper? I read the newspaper in the morning. Let's practice. I start. What do you do on Sunday mornings? How often do you read the newspaper? When do you read the newspaper? Watch movies. What do you do on Friday nights? How often do you watch movies? I watch movies every weekend. When do you watch movies? I watch movies on Friday nights. Now you start. I sometimes watch movies. I watch movies every weekend. I watch movies on Friday nights. Have English classes. What do you do on Tuesday afternoons? I always have English classes. How often do you have English classes? I have English classes 3 times a week. When do you have English classes? I have English classes on Tuesdays and Thursdays. Now I'll start. What do you do on Tuesday afternoons? How often do you have English classes? When do you have English classes? This is the end of Class 4. Agora você pode seguir para o livro de atividades e fazer os exercícios da Unidade 6, Aula 4. E na sequência começar a Aula 5. Na Aula 5 nós vamos aprender a falar as horas em inglês. Te vejo lá. See you. Bye bye.